English, yes. So today the presenter is Attila Havas, and the word is yours.
Thank you. Welcome. I have a very ambitious agenda, and for that reason, so it is not based. Why does it move right now? It's page up, not the arrow. No, the arrow is vice versa. So, as opposed to many seminars, it is not based on a single paper. I would like to invite you to think about big questions, the links, interactions between theorizing, measurement of phenomena, and policy implications. So in my view, these are very important for all of us, regardless of the research field we are working on. Because, I mean, you can start from any part of the triangle, or it can be represented with a circle as well. So theories underpin measurement, but measurement might ask very fundamental questions, or not just ask questions, but question some of the main tenets of theories. So that's a very clear link. And also theories can underpin theories together with empirical analysis based on results provided by measurement. These results can underpin policies, and policymakers again might ask questions for theories to make. They may express a strong wish to revisit theories for whatever reason. So this is the big issue what I have in mind. And I would like to go into details of these big issues in the field of economics and innovation. And as I said, it's very ambitious in terms of time. Therefore, I'm not sure if I can finish it on time, if I can present you all the slides. And then I decided to summarize at the very beginning the main ideas. Some of you are working on innovation, but not all of you. So let me stress that there are, like probably for many other fields of economics, various economics paradigms treat those phenomena in a different way, and that's definitely valid for economics of innovation. There is I will show you very briefly that already neoclassical economists were working on innovation. They were writing on innovation without using the term innovation. And then, did I say classical or neoclassical? I wanted to say classical. And then there was a big shift when neoclassical economics became mainstream economics in those days. And now we have what we refer to as mainstream economics nowadays. And we have evolutionary and institutional economics and innovation as well. And these paradigms treat, understand, interprets, and analyze innovation-related phenomena in very different ways. And there are innovation models as well, which can be somewhat kind of closely related to various economics paradigms. And my first claim is that the systemic view of innovation, which is closely or absolutely tightly related to evolution economics of innovation, that view offers a more relevant framework to analyze innovation processes and performance, as opposed to the science push model of innovation, which is very closely related to the way how mainstream economics treats innovation phenomena. You all know, regardless whether you work on innovation or not, the market failure argument as the main policy rationale to justify policy interventions in many different fields of economics. And market failure argument is present in this field as well, and it lends a very strong scientific support to the science push model of innovation, which is a linear, but not a systemic, but a linear stage model of innovation. These are very compelling and looks absolutely neutral, compelling, because these analyses are based on advanced econometrics. And therefore, policymakers, that's one reason why policymakers like those analyses, those types of analysis. But in my view, there are significant opportunity costs of STI policies, which are based on the science policy, or the linear model of science push model, or other linear models of innovation and the market failure argument. Well, I said the upper part already. One important strength that it is quantified, it looks rigorous, that it's compelling, and also, as some authors point out, that it offers a focal point to orchestrate policy actions. And if I have time, I will talk about the role of trial competition. By that, I mean a kind of misplaced, in a way, misleading comparison between the EU and the US. The systemic view of innovation, in contrast, is too complex. It can be, and it is perceived as vague. There are some formal models, like history-friendly models and simulations, but those are not the main analytical tools for the systemic view to analyze innovation in a systemic way. And there is no simple one-size-fits-all solution offered by evolutionary economists studying innovation. And as opposed to the market failure, their arguments are based on systemic failures, which is very demanding for policymakers, because there are many different types of systemic failures, and it's a rather demanding task to identify those failures. And it would also require dialogue with stakeholders, which is not a favorite activity for all policymakers. It's time-consuming, it's costly. So there are, from a narrow logic of rationality, I can understand that it is not a favorite activity of quite a large number of policymakers. There are sociological factors as well, why the science push model or the market failure arguments are still favored by policymakers. But there are severe policy implications of the systemic view of innovation, because that would stress that non-STI policies have strong or sometimes even stronger impacts on innovation performance. The very trivial examples are competition policies, education policies, investment promotion policies, regional development policies, and so on and so forth. But again, it is a daunting task to address all these policies. So that, unfortunately, from my point of view, there are several reasons why the systemic view is not really favorable. It's not favored by policymakers. Besides that, I will provide some motivations as well, and then some basic definitions, and then I will highlight the main features of three economics paradigms, whatever you want to call them. And then I will talk about some details, how innovation activities and innovation performance is measured, and then implications of that, and also the STI policy rationales, which can be derived from the various economics paradigms, and then some conclusions. So obviously there are rival theories, both at a macro level, when I mean rival economic theories to analyze and describe firm behavior, including innovation activities, and therefore there are different managerial implications. And also at a macro level, As I said, the different paradigms offer different policy rationales, and policy practice is, of course, not only shaped by theoretical underpinnings, but the policy practice has major implications for the efficacy of public spending. So for all these reasons, I think it is a good idea to have a good understanding of the implications of these rival theories. As I said, there are many other factors influencing policy practices. I don't go into details, and of course, for that reason, there is no one-to-one relationship between the given economics paradigms or any other theory and actual policy measures. So there are other fields as well, like social studies of science, sociology of science, sociology of innovation. So it's not only economics which is trying to influence science, technology, and innovation policies. And the kind of personal motivation is that perhaps we can have a dialogue at the Institute among the implications of various economics paradigms. And given time constraints, obviously, most of you are much more versed concerning the current mainstream economics. So I try to follow some, but definitely this is not my main interest. You might point to some important details what I have not heard of, or I would be interested in those types of pointers as well. And by the way, during the presentation, whenever you want to ask questions or make even a critical remark, then feel free to do so. I don't want to go to details of the joint Eurostat policy definition, but there are different versions. From time to time, they revise the so-called Oslo manual. But what I would like to stress is that innovation is not invention. Innovation has to be introduced either in the practice of a given firm, or the results of innovation activities as products, they have to be introduced to the market. And given the Hungarian context, where patents are understood as innovation, that was one reason to stress that there are jointly defined, jointly elaborated definitions of innovation. These were devised for statistical purposes, what can be measured at firm level, and Schumpeter has a broader understanding. That would include the opening up of a new market, the conquest of new sources of supply of raw materials or semi-manufactured goods, and also to reorganize of the whole sector, whole industry, either by creating a monopoly or breaking up the monopoly. Again, because of the Hungarian context, I would like to stress that in the literature, there is a very important, useful distinction between systems of innovations and innovation ecosystems. As for systems of innovation, we can think of them at national, sector, and regional level, and like in all system theories, all these elements are important but are listed, and there is a huge literature on that. Innovation, so it can be a macro level phenomenon or meso level, as opposed to innovation ecosystems, which are micro. Unfortunately, it doesn't disturb many journalists, politicians, policymakers, gurus, and you name it, to replace innovation system as innovation ecosystems. I think it's a major mistake. So when we think of innovation ecosystems, we need to think of a network of interconnected organizations connected to a focal firm or a platform operated by a focal firm, several focal firms. And these ecosystems incorporate production and use sides of practitioners who create and appropriate new value created by innovation. So this is a completely different notion. This is surprisingly that I have not found a good visualization for a national innovation system. this is more or less the best, but it has some pitfalls. The most important one is that it is missing that firms are also generating knowledge. And also they don't stress the importance of competition and therefore the importance of competition policies. They only stress the role of RTBI policies, as they call. I call them science, technology, and innovation policies. And of course, because the economic environment is important for innovation, fiscal, monetary, and other policies are also crucial. And I already mentioned education, labor market, and regional development, investment promotion. Practically, it would be difficult to identify a single policy which doesn't have any implications for innovation activities. The science policy is about creating new knowledge. So as most countries, new knowledge is created. So research is conducted at universities, therefore it is more or less a higher education policy, but we know that in at least half a dozen EU countries, there are government-funded research institutes as well. So it is not that simple. The technology policy is about supporting, enhancing of development activities aimed at creating and using new technologies. So we can think of military and environment protection. And innovation policy is about promoting innovation activities in order to improve economic performance or achieve favorable societal impacts. Of course, there are major tensions between these three fields of policies, which are otherwise interrelated. In terms of evaluation, now we are suffering from various new methods to evaluate our own activities. But we have to understand that the various sectors, or let's call them sectors, where knowledge is created, used, and diffused, they are guided by different norms, different institutions. They have different organizational culture. So I mean, maybe businesses on one hand, and universities and publicly funded research organizations. So commercial secrecy is the major rule for businesses, as opposed to the publish or perish rule for academic organizations, and also project management, deadlines, milestones, contracts, budget, I already mentioned milestones, termination of a project when it is not looking promising enough. So all these rules, all these practices are rather different in these two sectors. So let's turn to the various paradigms. As I mentioned, classical economists already were writing about technological, organizational, institutional, and market changes. I don't go into details. For those of you who are interested, I can share the slides. So I think I highlighted three major economists: Smith, Ricardo, and Mill. Then came neoclassical economics, where allocative efficiency has become the central analysis. So in other words, it's a short-term issue. And Vara pointed out that the major idea was to turn economics into a physico-mathematical science like mechanics or hydrodynamics. Giovanni Dozzi and Luigi Ordenigo many years ago, decades ago actually, have identified two functions of decentralized markets. One was the allocation of resources, and the other one is transmission of the impulses to change. And in their view, neoclassical economics focused on the first function, and classical economists were focusing on change processes, so the second function of markets. And implicitly, they understood or assume that investors, managers are always trying to be efficient. So therefore, we were not really that much concerned with allocative efficiency. Then we have mainstream economics, which is based on neoclassical economics, but not the same, obviously. So there have been many important changes, refinements. I don't go into details. I would like to juxtapose mainstream economics versus evolutionary economics of innovation, just listing the main notions they are using. Risk is a central notion in mainstream economics. In evolutionary economics, risks are not denied, but the role of uncertainty is stressed. And because of uncertainty, when we don't know the possible outcomes, and therefore we cannot have the distribution of probabilities of the different outcomes of activities either. So because when someone is faced by uncertainty, optimization is simply not possible, because rational calculation is not possible either. Probably not all, but many or most mainstream economics are using ahistorical models versus evolution economics, where the name of the game is that history counts. So the key notions are path dependence, cumulative change processes, learning by doing, using and interacting. So all these lead to important changes. And as opposed to information, which is codified and assumed to be accessed and appropriated more or less freely, of course, with some limitations. Evolution economics is mainly concerned with various types of knowledge, codified and tacit knowledge, as well as skills. So they are interested in learning capabilities and the many different types and sources of knowledge, because not a single actor in innovation processes can possess all the important required necessary pieces of knowledge for a successful innovation process. Collaboration among these partners is crucial. Probably the most important advancement, refinement has occurred in terms of replacing representative agents with heterogeneous agents in mainstream economics, but for some time it was still the name of the game to assume representative agents. Already at that time, evolution economics stressed the importance of heterogeneity. Again, because of learning and path dependence change processes, which lead to diversity. Mainstream economics is more or less comfortable with linear models of innovation as opposed to network or interactive models of innovation. I decided not to present the different types of models of innovation. As for measurement, these different economics paradigms offer quite important and different implications for measurement. Mainstream economics is concerned because of its reliance on the linear model of innovation, especially the science push model. They are interested in measuring R&D inputs and outputs, both private and public, and intellectual property right issues, mainly measured by patents. And we know that probably this is the highest quality. So we have long time series and serious ones. So it's relatively easy to access those databases. So I fully understand that it is a popular source of information for analysts. As the science push model of innovation is stressing or mainly concerned with, or almost solely concerned with R&D-based innovations, there is a factor of bias actually coming from the OECD, where in a not very well substantiated exercise, they calculated the R&D intensity of sectors in a certain period in a selected sample of countries, and they assume that that would be valid forever for all countries. Obviously, this is not the case, but based on that exercise, they have identified so-called low, mid-tech, and high-tech sectors. And high-tech sectors is used synonymously as very innovative one. But if you recall the importance of assembly factories in many countries, not only in Central Europe, but in several developing countries, you will realize immediately that, for instance, a high share of high-tech products, either at the country level or sectoral level for a given country, doesn't mean at all that that's a highly innovative sector or country. What would be much more important is to consider the knowledge content of various activities, as well as the knowledge content of goods, and to understand where those pieces of knowledge which are embodied in goods, either consumer goods or production equipment, how those pieces of knowledge are produced, shared, diffused, combined, and used. So it has nothing to do with the sector's R&D intensity. Another important point is that there are important types of innovation activities in the so-called low or mid-tech sectors as well. And from an economic point of view, those are very important in terms of employment, in terms of efficient use of resources, in terms of producing GDP, and so on and so forth. As opposed to mainstream economics, evolution economics is following the systems or systemic approach. They understand the importance of various types and forms of knowledge and sources of knowledge, scientific and technological knowledge versus practical, codified versus passive knowledge. And as for sources, it is not only R&D institutes or R&D units of firms when new knowledge is created, but the various practical activities also, they are also producing new pieces of knowledge. So they are interested in learning and competence building processes at all levels. Also the interactions among the actors, various types of actors, so the cooperation between businesses, the cooperation between academic and business type of actors, and so the flow of knowledge, how it is diffused, combined and used. And therefore, they are interested both in R&D based and non-R&D based innovation. So there is no sectoral bias, there is no hierarchy between low, mid, and high-tech sectors. And also because the focus is not only on technological innovations, on R&D based innovations, therefore the focus is not only on technological, but also on non-technological innovations like marketing, financing, managerial, organizational innovations. And what is really important in the last 2 decades or so, business model innovations. Of course, for instance, practically all these technological and non-technological innovations are closely coupled. So you cannot really be successful by introducing technological innovations without non-technological innovations, and the other way around. So the most successful kind of imperialistic business models have a very strong technological basis at that. So there have been systematic efforts to measure RTDI activities for that's 6 decades now, something like that, 60 years. There are widely used guidelines jointly produced by Eurostat and OECD. What is relevant for innovation is the Oslo manual. Because of the complexity of these activities, there is no straightforward, simple way to characterize and assess R&D and innovation performance activities and performance. Already R&D is a complex, multifaceted process. It cannot be sufficiently characterized by just
Sorry, what is RTDI?
Research, technological development, and innovation.
Everything.
Sorry. In the literature, what I read, it is. Thanks for asking. So R&D, you all know that it's research and development. So it's already a complex process. It cannot be sufficiently characterized by picking just 2-3 indicators. And innovation activities, innovation processes are even more complex. So therefore, policymakers, analysts, experts need to make a selection. And this is a very important decision. What indicators are chosen? It reflects the explicit or implicit views of those experts and policymakers who have chosen these indicators. And therefore, we need to understand, we need to keep in mind that indicators are subjective. Although they look objective because these are numbers, and therefore they are respectful, they are neutral, actually they are not. Another important development is kind of passion to compose composite indicators to try to compress information into a single figure, because then eye-catching scoreboards could be produced, ranking of countries, sectors, firms, whatever. I don't go into the details. What I would like to stress is that in case a ranking is used as a starting point for analysis, that's fine. But then you need to understand the indicators behind and also the processes, both the quantitative and quantitative elements, quantitative and qualitative elements, which would which would yield a composite indicator. If you stop at the composite indicator, then you make a major mistake either as a policy analyst or policymaker. Surprisingly, more than 20 years ago, the staff members of the European Commission who were dealing with the European Innovation Scoreboard had understood that. So they put into a working paper that the European Innovation Scoreboard has been designed with a strong focus on innovation in high-tech sectors, although these sectors represent a relatively small part of the economy, and the other sectors are important users of new technologies. Therefore, policymakers should pay close attention to those sectors as well. So they have been aware of the most important limitation of the scoreboard. And also analysts, leading economists of evolution, economics, and innovation made a critical remark that only R&D based innovations are measured, or mainly R&D based innovations are measured by the European Innovation Scoreboard. So they coined 2 terms: learning by doing, using, and interacting, and therefore innovation can be based on learning by doing, using, and interacting. So this is the DOI mode of innovation, as opposed to the S&T or R&D mode. And they also established that the DOI mode is very important even in advanced countries like Denmark. And actually, those firms are the most successful, which are combining these 2 modes of innovation. And then if we jump to the most recent edition, which is the same, the most recent edition, and the 2 previous ones are using the same set of 32 indicators. Of those, 11 only relevant for R&D based innovations. So this is the S&T mode. 7 mainly capture R&D based innovations. 12 could be relevant for both S&T and DOI mode, and only 2 reflect exclusively the DOI mode. So then the question is whether we have a half full or half empty glass. Actually, not much improvement has occurred compared to the first editions. And as I said, the economic weight of the low and mid tech sectors is very important, and it is neglected. So it's it's a major task ahead of experts and also policymakers to come up with a set of indicators which would better reflect the innovation processes and performance in all sectors. As a side remark, not long ago, just a few months ago, I've been told that still, although obviously there are other colleagues right now in the responsible unit at the Commission, so not those who wrote those critical remarks 20 years ago. So they are all aware, still are aware of the major limitations of the IS and especially the composite indicator. But because their perception is that politicians love it, they continue producing. So they have not, so they have changed the set of indicators. I will show you the summary table. But as I said, it has not produced major and required changes. So this is the current 32, and this is the evolution. We don't have time to go into details, but in case any of you are interested, I would be very interested in going into detail and discuss whether my kind of arbitrary classification is justified or not. Another big problem is that actually, if you look at the data collected by the Community Innovation Survey, then you will find that consistently, practically regardless of the periods, firms say that other firms are more important for them as sources of information for innovation. And also, if you ask them with whom, what type of partners they are cooperate during innovation processes, then consistently business partners are much more important than academic partners. I only present the most recent data, but it is more or less consistent. So if we want to assess the relevance of European Innovation Scoreboard indicators, then I think the conclusion is that these could be useful in a setting where the dominant mode of innovation is the S&P mode, but as I pointed out, actually, even in advanced countries, the TUI mode is very important as well. The other trouble is that the summary innovation index could be low for an innovation system characterized by a low level of innovation activities altogether, or a low level of R&D-based innovation activities, while other types of innovations might be abundant and successful. So for that simple reason, it is really a misleading guidance for policymakers, just to look at the summary innovation index. So at best, these indicators can provide a partial but still biased measure of RTD activities and performance. Therefore, the guidance what they offer is somewhat questionable, either for advancing theories or guiding, assisting policymakers and the policy learning processes. There is an even more ambitious exercise, which is called Global Innovation Indicators. It has 80 plus indicators and a much wider sample of countries. But the trouble is that they use kind of catchy labels for their indicators, but if you look into the actual data behind, they have hardly anything to do with those catchy labels. And also there is a strong bias towards R&D-based innovations. And what is really troublesome in my view, that R&D and innovation, these notions are conflated, although they denote absolutely different, related but different activities. So therefore, using these indicators is either for academic purposes or for policy purposes is highly questionable. And then let's have a quick look at the patterns. Again, for various periods of the Community Innovation Survey, you can find answers by firms, what type of methods, ways they are using to protect intellectual property rights, or more broadly, how they defend their competitive advantage. Patents is regarded as the most important one by many analysts and policymakers. And actually, it is only the case in 3 countries. So in all other countries, trade secrets are much more important than patenting. And also, the first mover advantage is not covered by the Community Innovation Survey for good reasons. But from case studies, we know that keeping the first mover advantage by continuously innovating is very important method to keep a competitive edge as well.
In this figure, do you think trade secrets are not patented because they cannot be patented, because those are different types of
yeah, those are different types, yes. I will mention later, but it's good to mention now that we know that the propensity to patent is highly diverse in various sectors, and also the legal settings is different. So in certain sectors, in certain fields of technologies, it's simply not possible to file a patent. It is changing. For a while, it was not possible to file a patent for certain types of ICT, R&D results. And as for life sciences, it is changing as well. So but you know better that how competition policy is evolving in that field. So it's an important tool both for companies and policymakers to regulate. But companies have a broader and more complex set of tools to defend their competitive edge or trying to gain a competitive edge. So to conclude this part, the choice of economics paradigms to guide the measurement of innovation activities is likely to be decisive. The selection of indicators. The summary innovation index is a composite indicator often used by policymakers, although it says hardly anything about the major policy issues. As I said, the global innovation index is actually somewhat misleading because of the various ways to put data behind labels. As I was trying to stress, patents are not innovations. They are using the input-output logic. They are throughputs of innovation activities. They are not used in all sectors because the propensity to patent is different, and the legal settings are different as well. And as I said, there are various other means to keep competitive advantage. And these are more frequently used by most firms in most countries. So therefore, up to the end. So if I want to save some time for discussion, then I have 5, 8 minutes, something. Thanks. So analysis solely or mainly drawing on patent statistics can only provide a partial picture. Again, I don't want to dismiss altogether patents and analysis based on patents, but I think it's important to keep in mind the limitations. And that would be important from a scientific point of view as well to clearly stress the limitations. As for policy implications, I know of 2 countries, Belarus and Hungary, where improving ranking on these scoreboards is the main innovation policy objective. Probably there is no need to comment on that. Hopefully what I said already, that has said the most important critical remarks. So instead of paying too much attention to these simplifying ranking exercises, it would be much more important both for analysts and policymakers to devote their efforts and time to conduct thorough comparative analysis. Again, as I said, if it is a starting point, that's fine, but if it is the end point, then it is a major mistake. New indicators would be badly needed, which better reflect evolution processes of learning and innovation. But developing these indicators is or would be a demanding exercise. It would require international cooperation. In my wide, absolutely unsubstantiated dreams, I think that, for instance, Central European countries should initiate those processes because it would be really important for them, for their own purposes, and also to change, to amend the EU practices. But first of all, it would be most important for them to understand the innovation policy, innovation issues, innovation policy, competitiveness, and so on and so forth. As for policy implications, as there are policy implications, as I already said, because of uncertainty, it is excluded on theoretical grounds that optimization is possible. Also, waste is inherent in innovation processes. Duplication is in my view, it's not a problem because it means that learning occurs in a wider circle and diversity is maintained, which is very important for producing new pieces of knowledge, finding new avenues. And error, or in the trial and error processes, or failure of a project is not a failure actually. It's a very important result. We are not to search, we are not to put further resources. Also, because of the importance of variety and uncertainty, policy making should be understood as a learning process as well. So adaptive policy making should be needed, badly needed. And diffusion and exploitation of knowledge is not automatic, it doesn't happen without effort. Therefore, adequate policy tools are needed to foster these processes as well. And coordination of various policies affecting innovation processes and performance is a crucial task as well. As I said very briefly in the introduction, the mainstream economics is providing or using the market failure argument. It is about generating new information. For various reasons, it is limited, the unpredictability of knowledge output from input, the interoperability of full economic benefits. That's why the IPR regime is important, and the indivisibility in knowledge production. And so therefore, the policy advice justification for government interventions is focusing on two major issues: to boost private R&D expenditure by subsidies, and also by protecting the intellectual property rights of these private agents, and fund public R&D activities, which is supposed to be really accessible to everyone. Of course, it's not the case, because in order to understand and utilize certain pieces of knowledge, you need to invest a lot. The evolution economics of innovation says that system failures are present as well in generating, diffusing, and exploiting knowledge. So therefore, their policy advice is to tackle these system failures. And therefore, it is important to promote learning both at an individual and organizational level, and facilitate cooperation, networking to generate and disseminate knowledge. And as I was trying to stress, not a single actor can possess all the important pieces of information for successful innovation processes. There are new concepts as well. I won't go into details. One is mission-oriented. The other one is transformative innovation policies. They are, I think they are important. There are some pitfalls and promising avenues as well, but that would require probably a separate presentation. I think I have stressed those several times. So coming back to the original motivation, I think we are faced with a situation where measurement mainly happens where it is easy to measure, and quite often measurement is neglected, or not enough efforts are put into measurement where there is a need, a very strong need to measure, to understand processes and phenomena. Also, as for analysis, for good reasons, I don't deny that, most analysts are happy to use readily available data, and they put lots of resources into those activities, as opposed to try to find new ways to analyze those processes, those phenomena, which would be really important to analyze. But because of limitations of data, partly practical, partly theoretical limitations, they don't put in sufficient resources and efforts. And of course, my old mantra is to combine qualitative and quantitative methods. So you can start with qualitative, identify certain patterns, and then you need to look whether it is an example or it's really a pattern, or the other way around. When you cannot explain something with quantitative analysis, then you can identify very good questions for qualitative analysis. So it can be a virtuous circle. And as I said, it is not just analysis and measurement, but also for theorizing, but also for policy making. So in case we don't put efforts into measuring what needs to be measured and analyzing what needs to be analyzed, but we are kind of complacent, then instead of a virtuous circle, it becomes a vicious circle, because then if you produce lots of highly eloquent papers published in in journals with high reputation, high impact factors, then you confirm, you strengthen the partial or even misleading types of analysis. 5 minutes. Then probably I stop here. And thank you.
Any questions or comments, even online?
So it's not only that the indicators that are based on the evolutionary models are not used, but they don't even exist yet?
Partially. So there are, as I said, in the EIS, there are 2 which are only relevant for the Dewey mode, and around 7 which can be relevant both for the Dewey and SMP. And with Martin and Tibor Barai, by the way, I should stress that it is to some extent based on an ongoing OTCA project. So I'm grateful for the funding. So we try to find various data sources where available indicators can be used in the framework, in the logic framework of evolution economics, as opposed to mainstream. So my view is that it's not easy, but it's not impossible. And as I said, actually, it's a pity that Alada is not here, because I think I will ask him why and how, for instance, neoclassical economics took over or replaced classical economics. So my absolutely kind of laziest or kind of personal, so not scientific observation is that in case the curriculum at university already at the undergraduate level is, so it is only concerned with mainstream, and for good reasons, that's the name, mainstream. So in my view, it would be more relevant to introduce the variety of economics paradigms and then leave it to the students, for those who want to pursue a master's degree or PhD degree, which one they pick for their own interest. But when mainstream is dominant, then lots of people simply do not hear about the rival paradigms.
Mainstream is a moving object.
Yes.
So, and that's the problem because they try to improvise through them.
Improve.
No,
Improvise.
Eat up institutional and evolutionary type of whatever. Perhaps the, so to say, the original initiators would have certainly resist that they are already capitalized or captivated by this attempts.
No, institutional economics is a
For example.
good example. For that.
So then, you know, if you say or put on the slide that there is no way to optimize on in a stochastic framework, which is something which is a very easy target. So I don't want to continue on that line anyway. So my question is that is it a manifesto against neoclassical, or is it a proof that neoclassical failed in your field? Because it's very easy to list other fields where might be this type of comparison can be done as well.
I don't have that overview of other fields. I think I don't have even a sufficient overview of evolution economics of innovation. From time to time, I look into mainstream pieces.
Just a concrete example. So you say that patents are not innovation. So then we have to see the proof that if someone is analyzing patent, it's totally misleading because it's regarding the innovation and what is the end result is totally contradicting what you would like to see as a description of what the reality is.
No, I was trying to say that I don't want to dismiss any analysis based on patents. What I would like to see is that those analyses make it clear, make it explicit that this is not about innovation, it is about certain elements of innovation processes. So for instance, if you analyze citation of patents, then you can identify very important features of a certain net. So whether there is a network or not, what is the dynamics of or evolution of the network. So my main problem is when people are using patents and they say that we have analyzed innovation activities or innovation performance of a sector, of a firm, or a country. So that's in a very simple term, this is my major point in that regard. And whether it's a manifesto or not, I don't know. As I said, my most optimistic ambition is that at the Institute we start a dialogue, a discourse, and because as a personal remark, I think some 20 years ago, the Institute was more diverse in terms of pursuing paradigms. Now it is, there is a very strong pressure towards mainstream for understandable reasons. The question is whether the Institute should resist or should comply without any efforts. And fortunately, I'm not the head of the Institute, and definitely not the managing director of CERS either. But still, I wanted to make this point. Yes?
Well, yeah, I just have like another question, just a curiosity. When you were mentioning some countries are actually trying to improve their scores about this level of innovation. Let's say Hungary and Belarus is some example, are some examples. So my question is, how do you do it? Because I perceive some skepticism about it, some criticism. So I would assume that if there is any policy, it didn't really work, or it worked only apparently. So just for the purpose of improving the score. And so I was wondering, what's the most manipulative? I mean, what is the thing that is the most, which can be manipulated most easily by government in order to achieve higher scores in that sense. Because it's not a chance, I mean, it's not a case to me that like Hungary and Belarus. Right.
That's a very interesting question. I didn't look into those 32 indicators from that angle. I think one of them is about foreign PhD students. So you can offer grants for foreign PhD students, or you can provide incentives for international co-publication. I think it's also on the list. My fundamental problem is that innovation is not about to have a certain rank in a scoreboard. Innovation is to improve competitiveness in a narrow economic logic, but also innovation is important to partly business innovations, partly so-called hybrid and social innovations are very important for tackling, easing societal problems and environmental problems as well. And policymakers are spending taxpayers' money. So instead of this elusive and misleading exercise, just to be proud that we improved Hungary's ranking by 2 or 3 in 3 years, I think this is absolutely irresponsible spending, even if they can manipulate, if they can find guys who can pick the most easily targetable indicators, that would be a huge mistake to spend taxpayers' money in that way, as opposed to tackling really important objectives for the Hungarian economy and society. Well, manipulation is the smallest problem of all.
Thank you very much. Time is up. So if you have any further questions or comments, then feel free to raise it up.
Thank you.
Then we relax. So I do the best.
Yeah. De az improve is jó, mert tehát elvileg azon hogy javítsák.
Szándékosan ezeket írtam, hogy és hogyha ő úgy mondja, hogy magába olvasztotta az evolúciót és az
intézményt azt nem tudom. Már új elégül is van nálam. Igen, de amit mondani akartam, az a valóban nem találjuk. De magyarul a cannibalize actually az jobb, mint a magába olvas.
Így van, mert
Ha magyarul beszélnénk, az akkor is lesz, a könyvnél azonnal megtalálni. Ezzel szoktam vigasztalni, amikor angolul írok, mennyivel egyszerűbb lenne magyarul, és amikor magyarul írok, akkor rájövök egy csomó szakítás lövés. Innen történik.
Ja. Kik voltak volna?
Én egyedül versenyben.
Az látom.
Nem történt. Nem tudom, így jönnek és mi az, nem tudom. Sem. Nem tudom semmi.
Mit tekintetben is szeminárium. Nem lőtték meg,
Köszönjük szépen.
Csak átsemmi volt online?
Miért?
11, ez úgy. Meg voltunk rá, ez nem részesített.
Az átlagon az